seekers, and welcome to After Cafe, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores beyond of thinking, beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest, two special guest people in the spirits of Christmas. Thank you for being part on Abstract Essay. They are the founders of Noor AI. They are brothers, though other than Mr. Michael and Mr. Rahim.
Yes,
Rahim, Mr.
thank you.
Rahim.
Hi,
Yes,
how
and
are
can,
you? Thank
I'm
you for having
fabulous.
us.
Yes, I'm fabulous, fabulous. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Of
Yeah,
course, I'll let Makaeel
absolutely.
go first.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you again, Daniel, for having us on. What a pleasure to sit down with you today. And just to recap a little bit more about me, I am a scientist and now the founder and CEO of Noor AI, a mirror for your voice. And going into a little bit more about my background, I grew up in New York and then studied at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia for my undergrad, working on cell and molecular biology as my chosen field of study and doing tons of clinical research across the Perelman School of Medicine, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and the Innovation ecosystem, working on clinical trial research, development of new drugs. And from there, that actually helped me pivot and move to San Francisco for 3 years, where I worked at one of those large biotech companies down in South San Francisco as a PM and scientist working on early drug discovery projects and managing CROs, vendors, and also integrating automation technology and LIMS systems into our workflows. And it was actually from there where I had the initial idea for Noor AI. Going through a pivot of my own in my professional journey, applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs, having these interviews and networking sessions, I would always ask myself the question, at the end of these, how did I sound or how did I go? And I think that's something that many of us can relate to, is not really understanding, oh, well, did I sound confident or did I sound clear or how did I
Yeah,
come across? And that led us to the idea of Noor. And Reem, why don't you share a little bit about yourself as well?
of course. So, as Makaeel mentioned, we are brothers. I'm 2 years younger. And I really have to say, I really look up to Makaeel. I think it took a lot of courage, especially in this job market, for him to leave his past job working in biotech to now work full time on the New AI project. So, just a little bit about me. After I graduated from high school, I did my undergraduate studies in New York City, where I studied behavioral neuroscience. And after I most recently have started my PhD now, also at the University of Pennsylvania, where I'm studying biomedical science. And it was really during that segue in my career that Makaeel introduced me to the idea of Noor AI and Noor. I was in the middle of my interviews for PhD programs, and I really found that it was very difficult for me to prepare and learn and try to ascertain what the interviewer was expecting of me, what they wanted to hear from me. And that's really where some of the groundwork for Noor AI was laid, really trying to find a way for people to have the opportunity to rehearse and practice and learn more about their own words by allowing us to then teach them about speech science.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, both of you. Thank you for empowering us to Noor AI. And today, let's talk about the science of your voice and what it reveals about you. So
Yes.
tell us what makes the human voice unique and rich biomarker.
Yeah, and I think this is something that Raheem would love to talk about. But I can also go a little bit into it. So, if you look at all the things that we track today, right? You have weight, you have water intake, you even have sleep, right? With platforms like the Aura Ring or Whoop, Apple Health, being able to track your biometric and physiological patterns. But there was this invisible gap that Raheem and I noticed where communication, which is such an important soft skill, was so under quantified and under understood that we wanted to find a way to quantify everyone's unique communication patterns, right? And from there, that led us to doing a deep dive into the actual science behind communication, behind prosody, which are more um, things related to like pitch and articulation and things like that. And
Mhm.
from there we did extensive research across 200 peer reviewed studies from MIT, Princeton, UPenn, and found that there is correlation that can be identified and can be used to help people understand their unique communication patterns and then track them, but also be able to see those in real time, right? In the middle of, let's say, a podcast conversation or a interview. Things like that could in fact be delivered in a way that was easy for a user to understand and learn from. And I'm sure Raheem can go even a little bit more into some of the
Yeah,
scientific
I'd love
ground.
to. I think what makes neuro AI especially interesting is the ability to integrate both the mechanical features of voice, like Mikhail mentioned, that pitch, rhythm, intonation, but also the context. And that's really what we're trying to work with our team of software engineers to really make sure that AI and machine learning are able to decode those signals and return a metric or different kinds of metrics really to the users to show them what they can improve on, especially since we give them an opportunity to really practice and work on different aspects of their speech as they use our platform.
Well, interesting, Nur AI. So, what specific vocal qualities, pitch, timbre, or pace, or modulation are the most
Yes.
scientifically leaky channels revealing what we might be trying to hide with our words?
Yes, absolutely. And so these are some of the points that we really wanted to do a deep dive into, right? So what are these biomarkers or vocal biomarkers that help someone come off as more confident or less confident, more clear or less clear? And as our research shows, it's things like how loud you're speaking, how fast you're speaking, how many filler
Exactly.
words you're using, things like ums and likes, and these things that can often go unrecognized, and subconsciously you could be using them but not really getting a sense of how you're coming across to the other person. And so research in psychology, in neuroscience, in prosody, linguistics, and this is also augmented by our wonderful advisory board, which consists of some of the leading experts in speech science, ex Amazon Alexa, ex Berkeley, and ex Stanford, people that have been advising us on the development of the newer signal, which is our proprietary scoring, similar to a the Aura Ring sleep score or Whoop's recovery or strain score, by looking at the feature level indications, right, such as pitch and articulation and acoustic, but also mechanical and semantic measures as well. We're able to find this correlation across all of these, different peer-reviewed studies that show that these certain patterns can, in fact, help you either come off more confident or less confident, more clear or less clear. And from that, we developed this scoring engine as well as this machine learning algorithm that is adaptive to each individual user, allowing a really at scale, which is really hard to do in the current landscape with communication, because everyone has different styles of communication, right? So we were able to come up with newer, which is extremely personalized and adaptive to each and every person.
Yeah, and I'm loving, Daniel, that you're scrolling through our webpage right now, which is constantly evolving, constantly upgrading. On the webpage, even the slide that you're on right now, you can see that we really envision Noor as working for the individual and the team. So we really imagine that people who want to be budding influencers or budding podcasters could use Noor to really amplify and improve the way that they sound. And even in contexts that might be more relevant for the average workday, person like myself, it could really be useful in improving how you might sound in a meeting or in a presentation.
Oh, I can use this because I have a lot of podcasts. Oh
Yes,
my
exactly.
goodness.
You're ICP.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness. Thank God for your breakthrough. How much
Mm.
of our vocal signature is handwired or from our psychology and genetics? How much is, well, they say, is sculpted by our life experiences, culture, or even trauma?
It's a really good question. And I would start by saying that a lot of your vocal experience and your ability to really convey yourself is environmentally dependent. So you might find that when you're in a stressful situation, that really shapes the way that you're coming across. For example, if I'm walking into an interview, my heart rate might increase, I might become excessively sweaty, and that's really going to affect the way that I come across. My voice might become shaky. For a lot of people, it might even become louder because they feel that they need to overcompensate and really increase their volume to make sure that their point comes across. So a lot of those factors are really environmentally dependent, but a lot of the work that we're doing in newer AI is really learning from people and learning from users to see if there are patterns that we can identify within our user base that even we can decode as scientists.
100%. And just to add on to Raheem's point as well, right? When we look at the newer signal, or the actual basis behind how we score communication and all these different things, right? So we have these five core pillars: clarity, authenticity, connection, and so on and so forth. These are based on the convergence of evidence across multiple fields. So if you look at psychology, right, the research on perception demonstrates that people form judgments off of things like charisma
Mhm.
and competence within seconds of hearing a speaker. And linguistics, going into prosody, which is the cadence, the pitch, loudness, and duration of speech. This shapes the comprehension and emotional stress or intonation as well. And looking a little more into neuroscience, studies of neural coupling show that synchrony between speaker and listener, brain activity can predict successful communication as well. And as
Yes, that's
Raheem
so
mentioned,
important.
physiology. Exactly. And physiology, so heart rate variability provides this window into stress regulation, resilience, and self control, which directly also influences vocal delivery. And, our long term vision is to develop a platform that's capable of understanding these three main parts of speech, right? There's like that vocal component, what you're actually saying, and the way you're saying it, right? The cadence, the pitch, the loudness. But there's also things like body language and visual context involved, how I'm using my hands, or if I'm smiling, my eye contact, things like that. But also the physiology, right? The biometric component of heart rate variability and breathing rate and respiration rate, and all of this combined helps us really now, because of the way that technology has evolved. We're able to develop this multimodal system that can ingest all of this different input data and help us understand and correlate all these different features, per each user.
You talk about baseline voice. How does science distinguish between someone's neutral, rested voice and the temporary changes caused by a bad cold or stressful day?
100%. And going further into my previous point of us being extremely adaptive and personalized to each and individual user. So newer is a mirror for your voice, as we say, right? We're not basing this off of uh, community benchmarks or population benchmarks, but this is really so once you actually to go a little bit more into the user journey, as you sign up and go through our voice first onboarding, in that very first interaction with the newer software, you're developing this baseline score. So this comes in the form of two different parts: a passage reading as well as a free talk section. From these two different parts, we're able to extract your core pillars, your newer signal, and have you establish your own personal baseline, right? At the beginning, and from there,
Exactly.
as you go through more sessions utilizing the software, that continuously improves. And scientifically we say z scores on the back end. And from there you're actually able to track how you're improving across your own performance. So it's not necessarily across a population or a benchmark of that sort of sense, but it's largely a comparison between how you started and how you're doing across different situations, right? And as you mentioned, yes, if you have a cold, you'll definitely see, okay, well, you might be talking a little bit slower, you feel a little bit of brain fog, and you're not able to get your words across right. But so these are the types of signals that Noor will pick up and not judge you for them, but just make you aware and reflect them back to you like a mirror, so that you are aware that, oh well, I had a cold, and that could explain why I'm doing this. But it's good for me to understand why my volume was down, or why I was stuttering during
Mhm.
statistical conversations or more technical conversations, because of these other things that are going around me.
Yeah, and we imagine that when users use Noor, they might ask themselves, well, how did I know? How do I know that I improved? Or how do I know that I changed? And it's really that baseline in our scoring algorithm that really shows them that evidence, that proof that they can track their journey and see that they've been improving over time, especially from that baseline assessment.
So, both of you, as a founder of Noor AI, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, I can start. And then, I think
Yeah.
the short term goal is for a platform that I can use personally. So I think that a large motivation for us has been to develop something that we can use, right? And then I think some of the best products and platforms out there are built. With that in mind, if a founder is actually resolving an issue that they saw themselves. So short term, I want something that, even having a conversation with you right now, I could get a sense of, well, am I speaking too fast, or am I not giving the right context for the
Yes.
question that was asked, things like that. But long term, we see this full communication intelligence engine, which is able to distinguish between a variety of modalities, like that I mentioned: visual, voice, and biometric, and be able to understand this full human communication, um, the full, the compounds of human communication.
Yeah, and I really have to reiterate what Mikhail said because he said it best. I want Noor to become something that I can use myself, especially going into a lab meeting, for example. I want to make sure that any complex scientific ideas that I'm trying to convey to my team are being conveyed in a way that's understandable. And I want users, my age especially, to be able to use Noor to improve the way that they're presenting themselves. And long term, as Mikhail said, we really want it to become a software and platform that millions of users, thousands, so many users can use to really improve themselves.
Improve and also augment, all of their conversations, both professional, but also social and personal conversations. We see its use in things like relationship counseling, and speech therapy and speech pathology as well. But
Exactly.
our main purpose, at this current stage, is to help professionals, help creators, help podcasters connect better with their audiences, or with their bosses, or with their teams, and make more effective communication.
Good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success. And
Thank you.
what will be
You
your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you, both of you?
have faith and go all in is my advice, because that's something that I was telling myself when I was working and making six figures, at this large tech company. But seeing this problem, I wanted to dedicate my time into solving it, quantifying communication and this invisible feedback gap. And if you really believe in something, go for it. Even if you don't understand it fully at first, that journey is totally worth it.
That's so important. Yeah. And I would say that a lot of people really struggle to find balance, especially between work and different projects. That was something that I definitely struggled with in the beginning. But I have to say that working on Noor, I've become even more energetic and even more committed to the project. And that really comes with, again, finding balance and realizing that every little bit counts, making sure that you're putting in the effort. That really goes a long way.
Yes, and thank you for that empowering advice. How does the science explain the phenomenon of catching an emotion from someone's voice tones alone? What happening in our brains where calm voice actually calms our down?
That's a really
Yeah,
good
sure.
question.
Go ahead, Raheem. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say that our brains are very amazing organs. A lot of the experience that we convey, especially through our words, is in response to what we're detecting from the other person. So you asked about emotion, for example, and I think that the brain is an especially amazing organ because it can really read your facial features and even hear the minor changes and shift in your voice and detect on that. So a lot of the emotional experience that you convey and you feel comes from talking to another person and your brain detecting what they're giving off. Do you agree,
Yeah,
Mikhail?
and just to add, and yeah, exactly. Just to add, it's not necessarily what you're saying; it's how you are saying it that the brain is perceiving as well. And even if it's at a subconscious level, you can walk away from a conversation, and sometimes, under you can. Some people I think can relate that you can maybe realize that, oh, they didn't really seem to vibe with what I was saying, and things like
Yeah.
that.
So, can consciously changing our vocal projections actually create the confident or calm internal state we projecting, or creating a positive feedback loop?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm glad that you described it as a positive feedback loop, especially because I think that the way that you convey yourself, especially impacts how you feel on the inside. So if I go into a conversation very confident, very happy, very energetic, my mood internally will shift as well because of that positive feedback loop. And Mikhail, did you want to add something onto that?
Yeah, and you said it so well, Raheem. Right, and just to add on, as you are shifting the way you're speaking or being more mindful, I don't, we don't see this as a way for you to act, right? It's more about reflecting these patterns that you can't necessarily track in your head or track on paper, unless you have something in real time doing that for you, and presenting them in a way that's easy for you to understand and then grow from.
Yeah, even coming into this conversation, I loved the way that you presented yourself. You were already so energetic trying to get to know us, and that really affected the way that I was then communicating with you.
Interesting, and we need you. Give me the applause. For sure.
Thank you.
Empowering answer. So, on technology and ethics, what advances in AI and voices analysis just like yours, what are the most promising and most terrifying practical applications on the horizon for mental health screening and hiring tools?
100%. And we do see this as something that can plug in seamlessly, right? And integrate seamlessly across HR teams, across consulting teams, management consulting, MBB, um, HR, as I mentioned, sales teams. So that this is something that, because we are cross-platform experience and AI native with a desktop app and a mobile app, it's something that's also invisible in screen share, but also helps you have these metrics in the screen on the screen in front of you, even through a Zoom or a Meet, or any kind of Slack meeting or anything. So that is really crucial in being able to reflect, as I mentioned, these patterns back to you, and allow you to connect better with, whether you're closing a deal, or you're talking to a client, or you're talking to a patient, being mindful of how you're coming across, and then how the other person also is perceiving you, can be hugely impactful for the success of the conversation.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you asked us about some of the negative implications and fears that a lot of people have about AI these days. And that's really not something that we envision with Nora, especially since it's a service that really works for the user. And we've put in a lot of measures and a lot of thought into making sure that everyone's data is securely stored, making sure that their voice is being used in a way that really benefits them and is really only being accessible by them.
Yeah, 100%. And just to add to that as well, right? We actually don't store any audio at all, and all the control is in the user's hand. We use the best in class encryption, and
Mm,
we're GDPR compliant. Working towards SOC 2, which are these industry standard, obviously compliance frameworks and certifications. So we do see the ethics, of voice, but being important in this field, and with any kind of user data, right? So we've even training our models, we train them with anonymized data, which has nothing to do with actual context or transcript or anything. It's
exactly.
largely about the insight, and how a conversation began, and how it progressed after that.
Let's talk about the cultural and linguistic bias, a huge
Mhm.
challenge for any algorithm. How does researchers ensure vocal analysis tools don't misinterpret regional accents, speech patterns, or from non-native speakers, or cultural differences in experience, or experienceness, or what do you call it? Expressiveness as a
Mm.
sign of something else?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that multi-language component is extremely crucial for us. And right now, so we are 100% live for English, but working for these multi-language biases as well. Developing and testing robustly, and doing machine learning validation, across different frameworks as well, making sure that we can account for these multi-language differences in things like tone and speed. I mean, I'm Pakistani, right? And me speaking in Urdu is it's different than me speaking in English, of course. And sometimes sometimes Urdu requires you to speak a little bit slower, or use maybe more of a different rhythm of speech, right, than English. So those types of things are in taken into consideration as we've been finishing up development and being able to offer it for multi-language support.
For someone who feels their public voice does not match the internal selves, what is the most effective evidence based path to change it if they choose to?
Yeah, I can take that question as well. And so someone who is unsure of how they're sounding, or there's like this discrepancy between their internal voice and external voice, we have a feature actually called Pro Practice. And these are practice sessions and drills essentially that we've curated with our team of advisors in the linguistic space and speech science, in also executive presence and executive communication. So these drills do a really good job of allowing you to see these our core pillars that I mentioned, clarity, confidence, authenticity, connection, resonance, in real time as you're practicing. And so let's say you're heading into a meeting, or you're heading into a podcast, and you are a little bit nervous on how you're sounding or how you should sound going into it. You do a couple drills, on Newer, on your mobile app, or if you have your laptop, on your desktop, and you can really help. It helps augment how you want to go into, or how you want to approach a certain conversation.
Yeah, and in these sessions, you can really set your intention. You can ask your AI coach or AI mentor, I want to sound like this for this. So, for example, I can say, I want to sound energetic for a podcast, and it'll specialize your training sessions and the advice that it gives you based on your intention.
As well as based on your previous history, right? So that's something else that we've been working on in the innovation space, is developing, what we call, or what in the AI world is called a RAG engine, which is retrieval based. So you know your own personalized companion, or coaching advisor, is able to present your how you've been performing, in the past, across different all these different categories. And if you have these kind of nervousness right before a conversation or anything, it can present this. Well, you've been trending confident for the last 2 weeks, and it's because you've been slowing down, or you've been using a higher or a lower pitch in voice. You're showing a lot of authority. So these kinds of things will help you reset and reframe yourself right before any interaction.
Interesting Noor AI. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season. Alma Book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 second season. Alma Food 101 is sixth season. This December, Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 review, Music 101. Our fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101, second season, and My Baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, Entrepreneurship 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, finally, what are your vision and mission in Nur AI?
Yeah, and the vision is helping even two people communicate better, come across more authentic, come across more confident, whether that be a creator on Instagram with 2,000 followers or an executive at a Fortune 500 company, going into and speaking with uh, shareholders and venture capital. So our vision is to be able to support creators and professionals and podcasters in a way that it works for them and is seamlessly integrated into how their own specific speaking patterns are, and help present those in a way that is easy to understand and easy to learn from.
Yeah, and very efficiently put, what we like to say at the team and remind ourselves is that Noor translates to light in Arabic. And what we're really trying to do here is really illuminate everyone's hidden cues and really shape the way that they present themselves and really their speech experience.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. And one more question: in a world of digital communication and truncated attention, what is the most important thing we raise losing if we stop truly listening to the nuanced science of the human voice?
That's a really good question. And I think personally, if we stop listening to each other and we stop experiencing communication the way that it was evolutionarily meant to be experienced, we really risk losing ideas. A lot of ideas were historically conveyed orally, making sure that people can share their ideas through speech. And if we're not really paying attention to what people are saying, then we really risk that exchange of cultural ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, and just to add on to
Yes. Go ahead.
just to add a little bit onto Raheem's, coming out of COVID in the last 5 or 6 years or so, with over 70% of conversations, both personal and professional, being online. We want to be able to offer that level of authenticity and that level of connection, even through a screen, as equally as you would be able to do in person.
Yes, thank you so much for being part on Abstract Essay. So, can you please invite our listeners to support Noor AI?
Yes, please check out our platform. Please check us out on Instagram, LinkedIn, and check out our webpage at mynur.ai.
Tons of updates coming. Stay tuned for more.
Yes, people, let's support Noor AI because something to looking forward. All right, a breakthrough for everyone, especially for the podcast people, podcasters.
Definitely.
Hell yeah.
Try. I want to try it now. So, Monica people,
Definitely, yeah.
see
We'll
you.
be sending you over a demo as well.
Please, please. Monica people, see you soon.
Thank you.